Hello and welcome back to the second episode of A Method to the Madness, our Breaking Bad edition. This time we'll be covering episode 2 of season 1, that is Cats in the Bag. I'm your host, Mitchie, and joining me today is Patrick.
Hello.
And as always, we'll just be reading through the plot summary, discussing as we go along, paragraph by paragraph, and then we might have a few things to say overall about the episode afterwards. So get us started, Pat.
Sick. All right. Walt and Jesse return the RV to Jesse's house, which was previously owned by Jesse's late aunt. When they open the RV to remove the two bodies inside, they notice that Crazy 8 is still breathing, despite inhaling the toxic phosphine gas. The unconscious Crazy 8 is taken into the basement and secured to a pole with a bike lock around his neck. Walt suggests that they should use hydrofluoric acid to dissolve Emilio's corpse so that it leaves no evidence behind. Walt and Jesse must dispose of the corpse and kill Crazy 8, and toss a coin to see who will do which task. Jesse wins and chooses to dispose of the corpse, leaving Walt to kill Crazy 8.
Yeah.
I suppose the first instance of chance is the safety being on the gun, but this is like the first major one that has a major role in deciding Walt's fate, is the coin toss.
Yeah.
Yeah. Who knows if Walt would have gone down the same path had he not had to kill Crazy 8, you know?
Yeah, that's actually very true, because it does, as we see later on, develop him into the murderer that he is.
Yeah.
But obviously in this episode, though, which is interesting, is that he doesn't actually go through with it. And, you know, that ambiguity there and the decision-making he has to go through is kind of... It's like I was saying before in the previous episode, it's so human. Like, it shows him as such a human character. Because what if that was you? And what I find interesting about this as well is that, like, there's almost no remorse whatsoever about killing Emilio. What do you call it? He created the phosphine gas in the RV, which ended up killing them, and indirectly, well, it killed him in hot blood, I would say. You know, like warm, not cold-blooded murder. Like, it was kind of justified they were going to kill him, but there's almost no remorse about that. You know, there's they don't think about it or anything like that. But when it comes to this, where they're holding this guy in the basement like a fucking animal, and he has to just outright kill him in cold blood, really, while he's entrapped like that, things become so much more different. And I think it does a very good job of kind of exploring that.
Yeah, it was a very clever way of smoothing the transition a bit from Walter White to, you know, a killer.
Yeah.
Because, as you said, he killed Emilio in hot blood, and it was sort of justified. But you know, like, who knows if he would have gone through with killing Crazy 8 if he hadn't already, you know, indirectly killed Emilio, kind of.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the interesting part is that they, so I think we might have discussed in that Prelude podcast, but the scientific theory he's talking about in the classroom is about chirality, and this idea that there's these two molecules that have the exact same composition, but they're just mirror images of one another. And as a result, they act completely differently. And he gives an example of that, which is thalidomide, which, you know, caused terrible birth defects back in the 70s. Remember that in chemistry class, Pat?
I do, yeah.
Yeah, and says literally like good and bad. And I think that is like a better analogy for Walter White's personality eventually than even the Heisenberg uncertainty principle, because it's like him looking in the mirror, you know, and what's looking back at him is the kingpin, evil Walter White, and that's kind of foreshadowing what's to come.
Yeah. I like how it's a bit more overt this time, that he notices the parallels of himself explaining this like chemical phenomenon, you know.
Yeah.
He sort of trails off at the end, and like he's like looking away. Yeah. Next paragraph.
Go for it.
Okay. Walt instructs Jesse to buy a bin made from polyethylene in which the corpses can be properly dissolved, but Jesse cannot find a bin big enough to accommodate it. Walt thinks about suffocating Crazy 8, but is unable to go through with the act. He instead gives Crazy 8 food, water, and toilet paper out of guilt. When Jesse returns home and asks if Crazy 8 has been killed yet, Walt promises to take care of Crazy 8 the next day. Meanwhile, Skylar begins to suspect that Walt is doing something in secret due to his recent strange behavior. After Jesse makes a call to Walt's home phone, Skylar traces his phone number online and discovers his drug-related website. She questions Walt as to who he is, and Walt lies by saying that Jesse sells him marijuana. Skylar finds his address and confronts Jesse while he's trying to dispose of Emilio, warning him that her brother-in-law is a DEA agent. Skylar doesn't notice the corpse. I love Jesse's website. Why does he have a website?
Well, he sells weed.
But do you have a website for that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what the law is in New Mexico, but presumably he gets away with it.
Probably back then it was still illegal. Anyway, yeah. I like the entrepreneurship.
Yeah, MILFs.
Yeah, she's like, what's a MILF?
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is interesting. Walt does the complete opposite of killing Crazy 8. He fucking nourishes him,
Yeah.
gives him food and water. Like, yeah, I don't know. It's very compelling, this struggle between,
It is.
you know,
Because
yeah.
you know what they could do is just leave him there until he dies.
That's what I was thinking. Yeah.
Like it would be like almost as indirect as, well, it's the most indirect way of killing him. It's obviously they're the ones that imprison him down there, but like it's a lot easier to do that. Than having to choke him. You know, yeah.
I like when Walter's cycling through the methods of killing him. He pulls out a knife. He's like, no. Gets out a gun. He's like, no. And then he sees a plastic bag, which would be, you know, the least heinous way to kill him, I suppose. Like the least graphic.
Yeah.
So it's interesting, Walter's mindset of like, you know, sort of justifying killing in a way where it's like, as if there's like a spectrum of murder.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's, again, another such a human response of this character is that, like,
Yeah.
what would you do if you were in that situation, Pat? You know, like, how would you kill someone if you had to? Or would you kill him? Like, it's just such a... And you know, people watch it and they're like... people watch this episode and they're like, oh, it's not really much going on in the plot, but, like, he doesn't even get around to killing him. And I don't think he even kills him next episode. I think it's the episode after that. Is it? I can't remember, but anyway, we'll find out. But
I can't even remember either, yeah.
yeah, but like it's just like, because this deliberating and this thinking that he has to go through just highlights how, like, still doing it but keeping it entertaining as well, because there's a lot of other shit going on, but doing that is just so important because it highlights how human Walt is. And I think that's something that a lot of shows just kind of neglect, you know, like what happens when you murder someone internally.
Yeah, it stands out. It's a very contemplative series for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, anything else?
No.
All right. Jesse does not find the specific plastic bin Walt instructed him to use, so he decides to dissolve the corpse in the upstairs bathtub. However, the hydrofluoric acid dissolves the ceramic and metal bathtub along with the body. This causes the ceiling beneath it to collapse, spilling Emilio's liquefied remains onto the hallway below. Walt tells Jesse that hydrofluoric acid will dissolve anything except plastic. Meanwhile, two Native American children playing in the desert find Walter's gas mask. Now, this is like, you know, I think especially in the early episodes of a show, you need like kind of selling points to keep your audience hooked.
Yeah.
This ending where the remains of Emilio fall through this fucking gross, goopy, you know, offal pretty much.
Yeah.
That was like a really shocking moment, I remember.
Yeah.
Something you hardly see is like the nitty-gritty of disposing bodies in shows.
It's literally an icon of Breaking Bad. This scene.
Yeah.
And like I honestly think it's one of the best scene endings in best episode endings in the whole show. It's one of my favorites. Like it's just so good. Like you just started watching this show and then this happens and it's like so fucking good. Like just because it comes down to like Jesse's stupidity of why that happened. Like, you know, it's just ridiculous. Like it's almost like absurd, but it kind of makes sense as well. Like,
and even though Walter got like the short end of the stick having to kill Crazy 8, he still has to help him like clean up Emilio. I guess that's the next episode, but you know, like Walt ends up doing both jobs anyway.
Yeah, that's very true. Yeah, and like I didn't understand. Like, surely you could find a fucking box big enough. Like, I don't know. Like, he's just Jesse's just such an idiot, and like
Jesse,
yeah. I find it interesting.
You love him though.
Yeah, I love him.
He's endearing.
Yeah, and that's like. It's interesting because like it's such a scientific reason why that would happen, and a lot of this kind of stuff in this is based around science. Like they kill people with Walt kills those two with phosphine gas earlier, and he obviously knows that because he's a chemist. And in this time, it's all about like acid dissolving things. Like it's cool how there's a little bit of science always in everything, a touch of it.
What does he call dissolving them? Like chemical
disincorporation.
Disincorporation.
Yeah,
very clinical way of putting it.
Yeah.
He gets the hydrofluoric acid from his school. Do schools normally have hydrofluoric acid? Like, surely that seems like a really corrosive and dangerous chemical to keep out of school.
Well, that's the interesting thing. So hydrofluoric acid is actually one of the worst acids to dissolve a human body with. You're better off going for hydrochloric or nitric or sulfuric acid. Just the way it works is just not as good at dissolving things like bone and stuff. But apparently Mythbusters did a myth thing where they basically recreated the scene to see whether you could burn a body with acid, dissolve a body with acid. And it's actually quite difficult to do, but hydrofluoric acid is like not a good one. The interesting thing about it though is that it's very deadly. So hydrofluoric acid, if you get a splash on you, you pretty much die because it poisons you, which other acids don't do that.
Right.
So I find it interesting that they picked this acid. To me, it doesn't make much sense because it's one of the most dangerous acids out there. So high school, like you're right, shouldn't have it. They should have other things like hydrochloric. And B, it's not even that good at dissolving bodies anyway.
But I mean, we fucked with hydrochloric acid in school.
Hydrochloric?
Yeah.
Hydrochloric's fine. So like hydrochloric, you can get down your skin and it'll burn you, but like it won't poison you.
Yeah, true.
But it's a lot better at dissolving shit. Like dissolving organic shit.
I really love this ending of the two kids finding the mask. It establishes Walter's effects on the world, like, or even this early on, he's having an impact on like the part of the world that he doesn't even notice.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good point.
It's a pretty big theme throughout the series. Yeah.
One thing I liked about this episode is that you learn more about, I guess, Walter's true self. So I didn't discuss this in the last episode, but in the pilot, he's just a real feeble character, right? And Hank just pushes him around and kind of almost bullies him in a way. And, with where he's holding a gun at his birthday party and stuff.
Yeah.
But then the interesting thing is he's got this massive change of character. The first time, actually, in the whole series, when he meets Jesse Pinkman. When he meets Jesse Pinkman at his property, he starts speaking to him like he's his teacher, I suppose. Like he's used to that, right? Like Jesse's his student, and that's when he holds a little bit of authority, and because he's got the knowledge of how to cook meth. But then in his usual life, he's just got none of that no knowledge at all about that kind of thing. And in this episode, he starts to kind of break out of that more. And when they go into the ultrasound appointment with, when he's there with Skylar, he tells her to climb out of his ass, which is like fucking great quote. And like, you just kind of like see that he's already changing as a character, like he's become more confident and you see the little nuances of his character. Like he's he pisses me off quite a lot because he's just such an argumentative, like, Jesse and him argue a lot, and then he'll say his bit, but then you won't listen to anything that Jesse wants to say. It's so fucking funny.
He's very stubborn.
Yeah, but he's also such a dick because he won't listen to what Jesse say because he just looks at him like he's an idiot. That's what he does.
Yeah. Is that's one of the most salient things about his downfall is that he fails to recognize what he's done wrong. Like he doesn't want to take responsibility ever. Like he's like, Jesse's trying to tell him, like, this is your responsibility because you came to me wanting to cook meth. And he's like, no, you brought those guys, to our van.
Yeah.
Like, he I guess they're both in the wrong, but, like, he's very stubborn.
He is. Oh, and it's basically his downfall, honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Got anything else?
No, that's it.
All right, sweet. All right, well, yeah, thanks for listening. Join us next episode.
See ya.
So right now, what I need is for you to climb down out of my ass. Can you do that? Will you do that for me, honey? Will you please, just once, get off my ass? I'd appreciate it. I really would.
If you like this series, Mitch is going to tell you where you can find more of these.
Yep, so you can find us on Spotify, YouTube, iTunes, SoundCloud, or Stitcher. And we've also got a website, amttm.com, where you can find our fabulous episodes on Breaking Bad.
If you have any questions, queries, insights, or criticism, you can send them to mail@amttm.com.
And as always, thank you for listening.